Hello everyone, my name is Satyajeet and I welcome you all on this Nandip Academy's platform, Nandip IAS YouTube channel, where we have recently started one important series called as 10 Ideas series, in which 10 different faculties are going to discuss 10 different ideas. My name is Satyajeet and I'm going to start with Indian society. My theme that I chose is nothing but to describe, to evaluate, to observe certain positive social changes those are going on at the grassroots level, ground level. I'm here to celebrate certain unsung stories, unsung heroes, where we often forget, while talking much more about social issues, we often forget to talk about these heroes, the social changes, the ground level real changes by the real heroes, and of course heroines. And the first episode of this series called as Bharat, the other side of India. The first episode is dedicated to such heroines, the women Sarpanchas of India, who have not only changed their villages, but also have given rise to a new revolution, a silent revolution that is going on in India, where the women Sarpanchas, the women leaders, are not only changing the infrastructure of the village level or the grassroots level governance, but are also changing the mindsets of the people. Imagine a village where a school is there, and in that school, the girls used to drop out because of lack of washrooms, toilets, and many other reasons. Girls used to drop out from that school. But now, that the same village, after 10 or 15 years, the girls are thriving in the schools, and the schools are full of waters, full of, let's say, playgrounds, full of gender equality and social norms. Those are very, very favorable for the presence of a woman in the schools. And that is because of a leader. That is because of a leader, and particularly a woman leader. Such picture is not a distant dream now. A village where a school is there, the complete infrastructure is provided in those schools, especially favorable for the girl children. That is not a now distant dream. That is reality now. And that reality is being observed throughout lakhs of the villages in India. We are going to study the changes. We are going to study and observe these changes. How and why and to what extent the changes are going on in India. And that's why the first episode of this Bharat, the other side of India, where we are going to study the positive changes throughout India. The first episode is dedicated to women Sarpanchas, the heroic and revolutionary changes they are going to, they are bringing about in their villages. Firstly, I would like to discuss what subtopics that I want to discuss with you in this series at the same time in this episode. This episode is particularly dedicated for the role of women in rural governance. And just a second, I'm really sorry about that. Okay. And we are going to study the vision of transformation, what vision they are putting forth in front of the governance system in India. Additionally, on what background the patriarchal substructures in India, how they are becoming a challenge for this woman, and despite all these challenges, how women are bringing about social change in India. That is our second topic to discuss. Third is about the 73rd Constitutional Amendment Act. Nextly, we are going to study that particular syndrome called as Sarpanch Pati, or the proxy Sarpanchas in India. And beyond that, we are most importantly going to observe certain case studies of real case studies of the real villages, real heroines in India. At the same time, what challenges they are facing in the rural governance, and despite all these challenges, what we can provide the way forward for this women and the complete society and community. If you observe the Indian culture, Indian norms, Indian society throughout the history, we have at least 4,000 to 5,000 years of written history where the patriarchal social structures are dominant in our system. Patriarchal social structures, they have been observed throughout the history through various forms. It might be sati pratha, it might be dowry, it might be domestic violence, it might be other customs and cultures which actually operate and systematically hinders the growth and development of the woman. In that case, many revolutionaries and freedom fighters, they of course saw a particular dream for India, new India, where women will be the leaders of India. But it took to, let's say, 1992, the 73rd Constitutional Amendment Act, because of 73rd Constitutional Amendment Act, many women, they started entering into the governance. We are going to study them factually in the numbers. So first of all, I would like to start with the what you can say 73rd Constitutional Amendment Act and what changes it brought in Indian society. The 73rd Constitutional Amendment Act was a revolutionary step in the complete governance, especially the change of the role of the woman in the governance system. Many countries in the world, especially European world, they are still fighting for the voting rights for the women. But in 1992, India, through 73rd Constitutional Amendment Act, gave reservation of at least 1/3 positions and at least 1/3 seats for women in the village level, block level, district level, rural governance system, that is called as Panchayat Raj system. And through these Panchayat Raj institutions, India took a revolutionary step through which now 1.4 million women, they have become the Sarpanchas and the members of the Gram Panchayat till the date. Isn't it a revolutionary step? Let's talk about in numbers also again. Now, how many women they have entered in the Gram Sabha, Gram Panchayat, that we need to discuss. But few points about the 73rd Amendment Act. The Gram Sabha will be there. It will be a body comprising of all the members, all the eligible voters. Gram Sabha, you know about that. The 3 tiers is the structures introduced by the 73rd Constitutional Amendment Act. At district level, intermediate level and village level, it introduced the role of women by the form of quota. Okay, 73rd Constitutional Amendment Act added 1/3 of the quota for women in all the levels of the Panchayat Raj institutions. Additionally, the regular elections now are going to be taken where, of course, the women are going to contest the elections, and after every 5 years, the reservation system will work in rotation and women will get a chance and opportunity to lead their villages. Okay. Reservation of the seats for SC, ST and women and other the provisions that now we need not to discuss about that, but the State Election Commission and State Finance Commission were other provisions in respect to 73rd Constitutional Amendment Act. But in context of the today's episode, 73rd Constitutional Amendment Act will be remembered, right, in the history as the step that gave women the agency and opportunity to lead their villages, and not only their villages, to set an example in front of all the male community and all the societies where women can lead. Not only lead, they can also change the complete social structures and norms and bring about the development that can be brought about by the men also. And the equality, gender parity that was established in the village level, it was not only at the, let's say, a constitutional or legal terms, it is now in the mindset also. And that's how the 73rd Constitutional Amendment Act was a revolutionary step in the rural governance of India. And of course, the 73rd Constitutional Amendment Act in 1992, it was being criticized as just a, let's say, rubber stamp, just a simple step with low potential and something like this. The very heinous words were also used for the 73rd Amendment Act, because the shadow of the patriarchy was not only on the families. The shadow of the patriarchy was not only on the societies, it was also on the lawmakers. It was also on the complete social structures. The patriarchy systematically not only, let's say, discriminated women against men, the patriarchy also hindered their opportunities. Patriarchy unequally distributed the rights, opportunities, right, personality development opportunities, and also the political voices among men and women, where women got, of course, the less proportion of this, all the rights, opportunities and many other things. And because of this unequal distribution of resources, unequal distribution of power, unequal distribution of opportunities, women became the most discriminated and underprivileged class in the history of India. Despite being a 47% of the total population, or even 50% of total population of today's India, women still belong to a vulnerable section in India. The reason being the patriarchal social structure and the shadow of patriarchy under which these complete social structures, including political structures, they used to work in India. But 73rd Constitutional Amendment Act was a step in the backdrop of this patriarchal system, and that is now changing the complete political, social and economic structures throughout the India. Okay, now let's observe about this 73rd Amendment. The 73rd Amendment, because of this 73rd Amendment actually, now the 46% of the all elected representatives in PRIs are women. Look at that number. 46% of all the representatives in PRIs are women, and this data was recently published by Ministry of Panchayati Raj in 2023. Okay. Additionally, till the date, 1.4 million women are elected as sarpanches since 1993. Can you imagine the number? Around 14 lakh women are now being as posted as, let's say, constitutionally elected as sarpanches since 1993, since 73rd Constitutional Amendment Act. Okay. In Bihar and Odisha, 50% reservations for women is given to Panchayat Raj. This is also very interesting and you can say very motivating idea. 73rd Constitutional Amendment Act mandates for 1/3 reservation in every state, right? But few states have even gone beyond 1/3 reservation, and many states, including Haryana, including Bihar, including Odisha, they have given 50% reservation for the women to be elected as the representatives in the Panchayat Raj institutions and local bodies. And thanks to this, the new steps, new ideas, innovations, and a positive and active, you can say, response to gender equality, because of these states and their efforts, now till the date 1.4 million women have been elected as the women sarpanches. In 2015 and 16, over 1 lakh women sarpanches across India, over 1 lakh women sarpanches in a single year. Can you imagine that? So by till that, by now we have 14 lakh women sarpanches now. In terms of, let's say, representation, women representation as compared to men, 44% are women representatives and 56% now are what? Men representatives. Additionally, statewide representatives of women sarpanches, if you observe that, a particular state, Andhra Pradesh, has even crossed the benchmark of 50% women representatives. It has more than 55% of the all representatives women. Additionally, Odisha has also crossed that 50% mark thanks to 73rd Constitutional Amendment Act of 1993, because of which women got an opportunity to lead their villages and to bring about change, real change in the villages. Additionally, this map represents the percentage of women state-wise, particular state, and how much women representation is represented in that particular state. We can observe from this diagram where Madhya Pradesh has 52%, Maharashtra is 50%, and likewise. Okay, you can observe this data, and there is no state, actually no state, except this Jammu and Kashmir and Arunachal, where women are represented less than 33%. So isn't it a revolution in itself? Can we just name this as only a change or revolution? What do you mean by revolution, by the way? Revolution is a sudden and significant change. And in 1993, the 73rd Constitutional Amendment Act actually paved way for a silent revolution, right? A silent revolution. And at the same time, though this 73rd Constitutional Amendment Act changed everything, even certain states like Bihar, Rajasthan, MP, Odisha, Maharashtra, and Himachal Pradesh, they gave even 50% of reservation for the women. Still, this system, this 73rd Constitutional Amendment Act was facing a particular challenge. The challenge was a particular disease, right? A disease because of, let's say, patriarchy. That disease is called as the proxy sarpancha syndrome or Sarpanch Pati syndrome. What do you mean by this Sarpanch Pati syndrome? Actually, when in a particular Gram Panchayat, elected representative is a woman, but due to patriarchy and patriarchal social structures, the real or de facto ruler in that Gram Panchayat, de facto, the real ruler in that Gram Panchayat is often the male relative of the woman sarpanch. Male relative of the woman sarpanch, and most probably or often he might be the husband of that particular woman sarpanch. Husband or father, or maybe something like that, maybe son. Okay, but particularly, and in most of the cases, a husband is represented, I mean, actually, he rules actually there in de facto form on the behalf of that woman. In certain cases, there are very, I mean, interesting cases happening in all over India in last 20 years. Especially in Haryana, if you observe the election contesting, or you can say the campaigning posters in Haryana for elections. The photograph of a woman Sarpanch is actually in a, let's say, very, very small size and in the backdrop of her husband or her father. Often her identity will be linked to the particular dominating male member, husband or father, and the identity of a woman will be identified on the name of or on the behalf of that particular male husband. In certain cases, even in Rajasthan and Haryana, there are certain cases where the male members, husband or father, they are actually taking oath instead of the woman Sarpanch. This case or these cases like this, I mean, the cases where the women despite being constitutionally elected as a Sarpanch, they don't get even the right to lead their villages, take decisions actually on the, let's say, office and masjids. This is nothing but the mockery of the constitution, right? The constitution offers the leading rights, political rights to women, and actually on the ground, some other representatives, especially male representatives, they are representing women. In that case, it is the mockery of the constitution. It is a mockery of the constitution, right? And throughout India, there are many villages, many cases where the women are not actually taking the decisions, but the male members are taking decisions. Because of that, the empowerment of the woman is getting compromised. Political empowerment of the woman is getting compromised. And because of that, the numbers look blurry. And because of that, we are losing hope. We might lose hope actually. But this hope, the hope of change, the hope of women empowerment, the hope of, let's say, bringing about education, health, literacy, sanitation in the villages, this hope is actually served by certain important women leaders who have taken a very, very, I mean, significant and revolutionary decisions and changes. And that hope is still being maintained by these women leaders. I would like to introduce you with first such woman called as Chhavi Rajawat. Chhavi Rajawat? Chhavi Rajawat is nothing but a working professional, was a working professional. She was an MBA graduate, but she left a corporate job and she decided to lead her village and become a Sarpanch, and her ancestral village called as Soda in Haryana. She not only led the village by leaving behind her corporate life, her luxurious life, she brought about a revolutionary change in her village. And now her village called as Soda is an international case study, even studied by United Nations. Even in 2011, I think she was representing India in Rural Governance Summit in United Nations, and she was also appraised by Mr. Obama at that time. She brought electricity in her village. She brought paved roads in her village. She took various initiatives to conserve water in her village. She even increased the literacy rate in her village, especially women literacy rate. Through various self-help groups, she opened up new avenues, new opportunities for the women in rural India or her village itself. At the same time, throughout the village, a new wave of hope, new wave of opportunities, new wave of employment, new wave of technological innovations was going on and is going on in her village because of a particular vision, a vision of honesty, vision of integrity, vision of leadership, and vision of change. Chhavi Rajawat is not the only woman who is bringing about such change. There are many, thousands of the Sarpanchas who are actually bringing about and leading such changes. Another name is Arati Devi from Odisha. Arati Devi, of course, she is working in all the sectors and all the fields of that particular Gram Panchayat, including water, sanitation, education, health, and many other areas, but she is particularly recognized for the initiatives she has undertaken for women's safety, women's security, their physical safety, physical health. And throughout the colleges and schools in her villages, she runs a particular initiative, a program where she gives the physical training for the girls and women, and because of which they can be self-sufficient and dependent. Right? Aarti Devi is another name. The third case I would like to start with is Gangamma from Karnataka. Gangamma is interesting case study. She belongs to Dalit community. Additionally, she is illiterate. Additionally, of course, being a Dalit, being a woman, she has been marginalized throughout the history. She has been marginalized throughout the centuries. Her families, the previous generations, she belongs to marginalized communities. But she decided not to give an excuse. She decided to use that marginalization as an opportunity. She started with changing the villages by a simple change, starting with a simple change. Particularly, she was focused on giving every home, every household a toilet. A toilet not only represents sanitation, it does not only represent, you can say, the cleanliness, it represents the dignity of women. Dignity of women. The washrooms, toilets, if they are attached to the homes, it is very, very attached to the dignity of the woman. And that's how Shauchalay Pehle, Shadi Baad Mein. This was her Nara, and because of which, in her village, in every household, the washrooms were established, toilets were installed. Okay. As a result, the entire panchayat declared open and defecation free. The fourth case is nothing but, of course, these toilets were just like that, and now that it has become again an international best practice, where on such a great level, a complete gram panchayat, all the households in the gram panchayat are equipped, well equipped with the water, sanitation, and toilets. Additionally, the fourth case study is nothing but the case study of Rekha Devi, Bihar. She turned Manarega. You know that Manarega is a rural employment guarantee scheme where the rural, you can say youth, the eligible youth can apply for 100 days of guaranteed work, and through which they can economically empower themselves. Turn Manarega into a women's employment engine, right? And empowered self-help groups to become entrepreneurs. Rekha Devi is from Bihar, is particularly famous for her economic empowerment of women. Okay, these four case studies, including Aarti Devi, including Gangamma, Chhavi Rajawat, and now Rekha Devi. Rekha Devi is particularly famous for economic empowerment of women. Recently, if you observe the data, throughout India, there is also another silent revolution is going on. The silent revolution at the rural India, where Manarega is approving the nothing but the engine of women empowerment. Out of total laborers working in Manarega till the date now the more than 50% women, laborers are women. 50% Manarega laborers are women. Don't you think when the women get opportunity to earn themselves, save themselves, spend themselves, it in itself is a silent revolution, right? So this is nothing but economic empowerment, and according to Pandit Jawaharlal Nehru, economic empowerment is the starting point of socio-political empowerment of women. And that's exactly what Rekha Devi is doing. She is turning Manarega as the growth engine, economic empowerment engine, and she's also empowering self-help groups. You know that self-help groups, Bachat Gat, jala apan manto. Self-help groups, nothing but it is a collective group of at least 25-30 women. They pool their savings and they deposit these savings into the banks, and banks on the behalf of that, or on the, let's say, the behalf of that saving, the banks give loans, credit to the women, and women, that group, SHG group, out of that credit given by the bank, they establish a particular venture enterprise, economic enterprise, where they can not only generate goods and services, they can economically become independent, autonomous. Okay, and empowered self-help groups to become entrepreneurs. This is also another initiative that is being taken by Rekha Devi. Don't you think these cases? Yes, of course, we have time limitations, and that's why we have only limited case studies there to discuss. But throughout India, a particular revolution is going on in all the areas of life, of the rural life. A particular sarpancha will empower the village in terms of literacy, where in another village a woman sarpanch is bringing about huge changes in the health system, somewhere safety, somewhere washrooms, toilets, somewhere economic empowerment and rural entrepreneurship is another area where the women sarpanchas are working on. Also, I just read about a particular woman sarpanch from Haryana. She is sarpanch of 3 villages. I'm not able to recall her name, but her first name is Shobha. Okay, her first name is Shobha. When Shobha was elected as sarpancha, got elected as sarpancha, there is a particular system called as Parda, still practicing, being practiced in Haryana. A Parda system where women are veiled under the particular fabric. Shobha did a revolutionary, job in her village. But the step, the initiative, you can say, she is recognized for is nothing but removing that veil out of her face in front of 2,000 people. This was not only uncovering her face. This was nothing but, not only the uncovering of her face, actually it was challenging the traditional norms, traditional customs, traditional dogmas, where women are continuously suppressed, where women are being continuously facing exploitation against and because of this patriarchal system. Shobha did challenge that custom. Shobha did challenge that age-old ritual. Right? And that's how this is a complete revolution from everyone's eyes. This is a complete revolution, a silent revolution that is going on. And what is actually the difference between when a particular male becomes sarpancha and against a woman becoming a sarpancha? There is a lot of difference. If you observe the managerial skills and the leadership skills of these two genders, they are actually differential. Male sarpanch will actually focus, of course, they will focus on the development of overall development of the village. They will focus on infrastructure. They will village on roads. They will focus on bringing about school, education, literacy. But when a woman becomes a sarpanch, there are certain areas in the rural governance which are being neglected by the male members, and they are being brought into the focus again by the women leaders, women sarpanchas. What about gender equality? Often it is observed that male sarpanchas, it might be possible where these gender equality initiatives will be ignored by the male members, right? Male sarpanchas. What about gender equality in education and literacy of women particularly? Might be ignored by the male members, right? Thirdly, what about the reproductive health of women and spread of contraceptives for women? Might be ignored by the male sarpanchas, right? At the same time, what about the safety of women at the village level? Might be, you can say, ignored by the male members. But when a woman becomes a sarpanch, she is going to primarily focus on these areas. She is going to primarily focus on family welfare. She is primarily going to focus on the education and health of women and children. She is primarily going to focus on the anti-corruption drives. She is primarily going to focus on reproductive health, sex ratio, right? And that's why if a woman leads a village, more holistic development and more development is being observed throughout that village. And many studies, including United Nations study, support this view. According to various reports, the reports highlight that because of women sarpanchas and women leadership, somewhere in some villages, sex ratios have improved. Women literacy has improved. Reproductive health has improved. Maternity mortality rate has dropped. Infant mortality rate has dropped. Alcoholism, drug addiction rates have been they are dropping. Corruption levels are at the minimum level, the minimalist level because of the women leadership. So this is the qualitative change between a male sarpanch and a woman sarpanch. And that's how it is very, very important for the rural governance and the complete governance of India to give a chance to women to show their inner qualities. just like Mahatma Gandhi had observed actually in Satyagraha, in non-cooperation movement, in Quit India movement, where women are the true Satyagrahis according to Mahatma Gandhi, right? And we can, as Mahatma Gandhi broadened the base for the complete freedom struggle, we can now broaden the base for our future India. We can now broaden the base of this new ongoing movement of new India. Okay, so this is the change, the positive change that women sarpanchas are bringing about in India. Additionally, if you observe in numbers, 70% of the women sarpanchas in Bihar had no political family background. A revolution in itself. Villages with women sarpanchas have 15 to 20 better schools functioning percentage, right? This study is conducted by Harvard study by Chattopadhyay and Duflo. You know that Duflo, right? Villages with women sarpanchas have 15 to 20% better school functioning. Okay, why the women leadership is, in some extent, of course, to some extent, is better than the male membership and the male leadership. This is another area to study. We must, research on that topic. But the numbers, they prove these assumptions are right. Okay, Harvard study. Additionally, the government initiatives are also being conducted to empower women leadership, women political representation. And recognizing this potential of women sarpanchas and women leadership, Government of India is conducting various initiatives through which women can be empowered. Their potential can be empowered. Their capacity can be empowered. And that's why these initiatives are nothing but, firstly, you know that 73rd Constitutional Amendment Act, where we legally and constitutionally recognize the right of the women to represent their villages, to lead their villages. Secondly, Mahila Shakti Kendra. This Mahila Shakti Kendra empowers the rural women through training in leadership, training in digital literacy, training in entrepreneurship, right? The name is Mahila Shakti Kendra. Additionally, state government training initiatives are also going on, where the women sarpanchas are periodically trained in terms of leadership qualities, in terms of governance practices, best practices, technology, internet and its usage, self-help groups and how to make them better and better. Additionally, Nari Shakti Puraskar is also being awarded for the women. This is a national award, where through this award, we recognize the best leaderships and the best leaders in terms of women sarpancha. Special financial schemes are also, you can say, being implemented for the women who lead their villages. Government is doing a lot, of course. And government has started through 73rd Constitutional Amendment Act, through various schemes like this. And government is doing, the best part that it can perform. Now it's time to recognize the potential of women to lead the society and communities by the society itself. Right? The government has, of course, not finished but done its job. It is the time for us to recognize their potential, right? So 73rd Constitutional Amendment Act. International level, if you observe, there are various innovative and important case studies that can teach and we can learn from these case studies in the future path. There is a particular country called as Rwanda. And if you observe the women participation and women political representation in Rwanda, more than 60% of the parliamentarians in Rwanda are women. Because of gender equality awareness drives, at the same time, and because of the rigorous implementation of the laws, just like 73rd Constitutional Amendment Act that we have in India, they have also the legislations and acts and amendments in their country, and they have rigorously implemented and executed these amendments and laws. And because of that, more than 60% of the parliamentarians in Rwanda are now women. The another country I would like to talk about is nothing but, of course, maybe we can talk about Ghana. In Ghana, digital literacy for women leaders is another initiative, the best practice that is going on. And you know that in the today's era, even in the rural governance, that literacy, not only the literacy in the functional literacy, but the digital literacy is much more important than the functional literacy itself. In Sweden, the veteran or experienced women political leaders, they mentor the newcomers into the politics. The newcomer women in the politics. They mentor them. Isn't it a good idea that we can implement this idea in India itself, right? Where we have a huge number of women leadership, experienced leaders, right? They can teach, they can mentor the newcomers to the politics, especially women. And that's how through this international best practices, we can study a lot and we can implement these ideas in India also. And beyond that, what can we do to further the potential of the women sarpanchas in India? Firstly, we should move beyond quotas. Giving quotas, reserving the 1/3 or at least 50% seats for women was the first step. What about the mindsets? What about the patriarchal structures? What about the social norms, practices, customs that hinder the political participation of women? Even after 75 years of independence in India, that needs to be changed. So we need to move ahead of the quotas. We now need to focus on the mindset, social structures, family institutions, and many other things where the potential of the women can be recognized and they will be rewarded equally with the men. Secondly, zero tolerance for political violence. There are many cases where a woman, when she is taking decisions or let's say hoisting the flag and many other times, particularly a male higher caste, particularly you can say higher caste group, male dominated groups, they will physically and sexually harass these women leaders. So there should be zero tolerance against, for the political violence in rural India. Additionally, institutionalize the parallel women's forum. You should have a parallel women forum at the Gram Panchayat level where that parallel women's forum, all women body will act like a think tank. Okay, and that think tank will guide the Gram Panchayat and Gram Panchayat body where the interests of the women will be safeguarded. Okay, so we should have a parallel women's forum. Additionally, training should be given to women sarpanchas. Training should be given to women leaders at the Gram Panchayat level or even block or district level. And that training should be in the areas of leadership qualities. That training should be in the areas of digital literacy. That training should be in the area of financial management, budget formation, right? Even socio-economic development and many other areas. And that's how we can run a cross-sectional and intersectional, training programs throughout India, where particularly women will be given training in rural governance areas. Additionally, innovation with the technology, that is another area where we should focus more on. And because of that, the technology will not get only penetrated to village India, we can also benefit from that technological intervention in the rural India. And that's how I'm going to cover the same topic in the next episode, second episode of this series called as Bharat, the other side of India. The second episode will be focused on this particular topic. The episode's name is nothing but Digital Didi. Digital Didi. Throughout India, we are observing that in rural Indias, because of technological interventions, you can say telecommunication, also Wi-Fi or internet. Because of these technological interventions, women, particularly women at the rural level, they are bringing about another economic revolution. They are becoming the new age entrepreneurs. And how and why, we are going to discuss that also in the second episode of this series called as Bharat, the other side of India, where we are going to discuss 10 different stories, 10 different ideas of social change, positive social change, real lives, real heroes, and we are going to celebrate these unsung heroes and unheard stories. Till then, thank you very much for this session and appreciating women sarpanchas and their potential in India. On the behalf of Nandip Academy, I would like to take your leave and meet you soon in the episode 2 of this series, Bharat, the other side of India, very soon. Thank you very much.